The subject assigned today is Muslim Renaissance, and from the perspective of La Ilaha Illallah. There is no God but God. Interesting subject, and I'm tempted to first compartmentalize each word that constitutes the entire topic. So when we pick on the word Muslims, it to me seems like a brand that has emerged in the evolution of various social orders in recorded history and has surfaced as a brand that is reliant upon a set of circumstances, A, B, an energy base of ideology, and the product in the following of this particular ideological plane are referred to as Muslims. Renaissance, on the other hand, would mean rebirth. So what we are in effect addressing is that is a factor of death, or is a factor of regress, decadence, that had inflicted the Muslims, or that has inflicted the Muslims, and because of its merit, quality, and virtues, there seems to be a need for resurgence. So the topic revolves around Muslim Renaissance. The inference of the declaration of La Ilaha Illallah, that there is no God but God, is the energy base that delivered the Muslims to wherever they managed to get to in history as leaders and at the pinnacle of glory and success. Now, we will first, therefore, see and examine the merit of the energy base called La Ilaha Illallah, and when we would like to view the declaration, it would become incumbent to delve into the history of religions of sorts, those that are divine, those that are based on mythologies, those that are man-made, and when we delve into the history of religions, we will need to see the need and the social need of religions as essential, and this social need is for the purposes of providing societies with a set of laws that can enable coexistence. So when we look at religions that are divine based, we will conclude that these religions which are divine based are all subject to a factor of evolution, and this evolution dovetails with the level of human civilization as did exist at any given point in time in human history. So as human civilization evolved, so did the religions, until we see that the final message in the form of the Quran did surface, and that final message provided the preamble for the management of societies. It is from here that we have to look backwards and see the process and the history of evolution, and we will conclude that the most revolutionary and thought-provoking, energetic message that could ever visit or could ever be available to mankind was in the declaration of the word, of the declaration of La Ilaha Illallah. It is revolutionary because what is being said requires A, explanation, and B, it requires proof. The explanation is simple, and that is the existence of society, the existence of mankind, the existence of all other creation is and has to be on the basis of a creator, a matter of causes and effects. And the proof, of course, has to be seen and sought in the Islamic history, where the entire message is based on the truth, which has not been and could not be challenged for any facet that is manifest. There are contrary views, there are contradictions, there is opposition, there is loyalties of followers of preceding religions who would like to live with the tradition that their forefathers in history subscribed to, and therefore they ascribe to it. But that is without sufficient proof. So this declaration, in effect, when you expand upon it from the philosophical, from the political, from the social, from the economic perspectives, delivers a clear understanding that every individual is essentially a part of the whole, the Creator. And therefore is empowered to do, to act, to create, to innovate, to tread as he or she deems fit. This is therefore a license to evolve in the levels of knowledge which is at the root of evolution in human civilization. This liberty is sanctified and cannot be challenged, deterred, restrained, or set aside, because it empowers every follower to a point which is limitless. So when we go to the message again, 2-3 injunctions are fundamental in support to what I have narrated. Number one, that the Quran ordains compulsive and continuous migration. When you view human civilization, it has evolved only when a knowledge base has been transferred from the echelon of society to the commoners. So when we assert that human civilization has moved a notch ahead, what we are in effect stating is that the knowledge base has expanded from where it was to a notch ahead. Then we go back to the Quran and would like to refer to the job description of the human race, and we find that it ordains our constant search for the truth. That is the job description of man. Now this takes us into the current situation of societies on the planet as they exist today, with the worshippers of science and with the with atheists. And there is very little which is uncommon. The only difference is, and that is the poverty that stems from the message of Islam for the believers, that while you innovate, while you search, while you research, while you conclude, you attribute that to that larger force you are a part of, which is your Creator. And wherever you arrive at, in your search, in your research, in your findings, in any event, is not the ultimate level of knowledge. Because the Creator, while He has empowered you and has given you the liberty through a term called ijtihad, based on shura, which is collective, consultative regime, invites you to move on. There is no stagnation, because knowledge has got no limit. Where it can be affixed. So the most revolutionary message that ever came to the human race was in the deliverance of this declaration of La Ilaha Illallah. Now, with this energy base available to the Muslims, as long as they were practicing it, the Muslim societies were doing fine, were doing more than fine. They were leading the world. They were bastions and custodians of knowledge because it was transiting by the minute. Because of the aspects of mutual consultation and because of the aspects of search and research that they were indulging in from within the Quran and from within the environments they were living in. There is another beautiful aspect into the understanding of this particular declaration, that like every other creation of Almighty, like air, water, atmosphere, the solar system, the galaxies, society is also an entity of creation, just like time. And it is therefore a unit. And I have to mention this because it has far-reaching effects when it comes to Islamic jurisprudence. That when you look at society as one unit, then the fracturing of the unit becomes an excess of law, the transgression of law. So it is in the unity of keeping societies intact that enable the Muslim civilization to move on and rise to the top. It is that pinnacle that was achieved by the following of the message that is being discussed and is being sought for resurgence with the use of the word Renaissance. In the management of societies, and again from the perspective of law, there are two fundamental aspects which have to be considered by any social order, enabling coexistence, free of all forms of oppression, tyranny, and crime. One is material justice and the laws that support it, based on that liberty and freedom. And the other is social justice, which prevents people living in any society, in any Muslim society, committing a crime or an excess on their fellow being. It goes beyond. It is just not the human race. It is also the ecology in which the human race or the society does exist. It is other creations. It is the animals. It is the protection of the natural resources that all come into play. So, when we want to head for a Muslim Renaissance based on this energy called La Ilaha Illallah, we have to establish material justice and social justice in consonance with the liberties given in the message of Allah through this declaration. Ironically, in the Islamic history, this liberty, this freedom has consistently been throttled, challenged, suppressed by the rudimentary feudal structure of societies, and one that was supported by the clergy. Ironically again, almost legalizing oppression in Islamic societies, which became the principal reason for its decadence and decline. When we move to invoke material justice and social justice in societies, we have to essentially legally define the nature, the efficacy, the place of governments. Societies need management, and the management of societies is done by servants appointed for the job, and they, in ordinary grammatical terms, would mean government. That means a government in an Islamic society have to be essentially servants, not rulers. And this is fundamental again from the perspective of Islamic jurisprudence. Because if you have servants behaving and acting as rulers, then the liberty and the fundamental essence of the message gets compromised, it gets shelved, and it is therefore absent as we see it today. Governments that are servants are required to essentially guarantee the security and welfare of the population by the correct utilization of the natural resources available, the human resources available, and by the establishment of the factor of equity. So among the pillars of any government, the arm, the security arm, the judicial arm, the bureaucratic arm, and the arm that represents the will and wish of people, all told, have to heavily lean upon an independent judiciary that has the power and that has the purity to adjudicate between the governors and the governed, between the servants and their employers. The servants being the functionaries of the government, the employers being the people who pay to hire and keep these servants in office. In my understanding of the subject tonight, the fundamental point which has to be made when we wish to address the resurgence or the renaissance in Muslims, for the Muslims, in Muslim societies, we have to look at law and we have to look at unity. And we have to look at it restricted from the perspective of the faith, the message delivered to us. The God of the Muslim people, Allah, is a word without any definition, any meaning prior to its introduction. It has been Allah from inception, and it remains Allah today. The efficacy of a God requires a proof. And that proof is available through the message and through the people who delivered the message. In fact, through the person who delivered the message and his followers who upheld it. And if they could recognize the power and the truth and the proof 1500 years ago, there is absolutely no reason why in societies of our day and age we cannot see the merit. This merit is so revolutionary, so powerful, so full of energy for any society to own, uphold, implement, and evolve with, that essentially is the message that we need to deliver in this talk. The forces that oppose it through the notions of a variety of branded Islams, through political expediency, through the interference of leaders of various sects, through feudalism, monarchies, are all absurd. Because when you put the merit on the scales for social welfare, none of these forces that oppose the merit for their own economic vested interest have any meaning or any validity whatsoever. Based upon the merit and concluding this particular talk, we see that the liberty available to mankind politically, from the economic perspective, from the social perspective, even from the religious perspective, is so enormous that it makes an excellent case as a writ against all forces that oppose it, or all forces that would like to uphold a different social order. viewing it from the perspective of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, which in contemporary history surfaced as the first ideological based nation state, and then viewing other Muslim societies under monarchs, under the clergy, under the feudals, we will see that it is a secondary, a rudimentary, an oppressive structure for the management of Muslim societies that they have all adopted and uphold. That needs to be shelved, and our own structure with the complete extent of liberties available therein has to be adopted and invoked. So when we look at Muslim Renaissance based on the message of La Ilaha Illallah, we should recognize ourselves jointly and severally as empowered to represent the authority of the Creator on the planet. And this is crucial for coexistence with people of our faith and with people of different faiths. It's time that the human race climbed out of the factors of oppression and tyranny and evolved in the levels of civilization to see a better world. That is my case. Thank you.